There's a really enlightening article I read by Dave Jameson about an important regulation that Trump is rolling back and the consequences of doing that. So the Obama administration finalized new rules about crystalline silica. And what that is a carcinogenic dust that comes from sand and granite. So workers who cut countertops and other things have basically been getting sick from this stuff for a long time because breathing it in over an extended period leads to, massive respiratory problems. It leads to a debilitating lung disease called silicosis. So the good news is there are ways to prevent that, like if you wet the rock before it's cut, and if you install ventilation or dust collecting equipment on the work site, and if you wear respiratory equipment that's designed to filter out the dust, well, then you mitigate the damage, and people, they could be okay doing this kind of work. But, standard practice for the longest time is not to take these precautions and not to do the right thing. So people get sick when they're involved in this business where they're breathing in crystalline silica for a long time. So Trump's White House just decided, we're just not going to implement those new rules. Wait, what? They were just finalized under the Obama administration. This was a long time coming. Unions have been pushing for this for a long time because it saves lives. It'll save lives if you have better regulations around breathing in this fucking toxic carcinogenic dust. Trump was like, no, we're good. We're not going to forget that. Don't worry about that. Wow. Okay. So the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, has estimated that the new rules would cut down silica exposure for roughly 2.3 million workers, excuse me, preventing an estimated 600 deaths annually. So you would save 600 people every year, workers in this industry, if you just had these new rules in place. And of course, Trump doesn't care. So OSHA says that instituting the new controls would cost businesses $511 million annually. So this is for the entire industry to put these new safety standards in place, abide by these new regulations. Now you might say, well, look, that is a very high burden for these companies to bear. Maybe some of them can't afford it. So there's a reason to maybe walk on eggshells around this new policy change. But get this. It would cost the businesses $511 million to implement the rules. But it actually would save $7.7 billion each year due to savings on healthcare and lost productivity. So in other words, you work in this industry, you get sick. It costs money. You miss work a bunch, or you go to the hospital and you got to pay for the bills. Healthcare's got to get taken care of. But the reason why you miss the days, the reason why you end up in the hospital is because you're breathing in the fucking toxic dust that there's lax regulations on. So, sure, it costs money up front to do the regulation, but in the long run, it saves money for everybody because you're not having lost productivity and you're not having people go to the hospital because they're sick with silicosis. So, this is a no-brainer, and this is why, I've said it before, man, we talk about so many other issues like it's the main issue, but really, regulation is probably the main issue. Why? Because, we've covered stories about how hundreds of thousands or millions of people die every year simply because of pollution. Because of lax regulations when it comes to pollution. So, people end up dying young because they're breathing in shitty air throughout their entire life. Now, I'm not talking about in the U.S. here. I'm talking about the world over. But like in China, breathing in toxic, there were literal kids who got lung cancer because they're breathing in the toxic air because they break the meter when it comes to the pollution there. But point is, under a Trump administration and under Republican administrations, that's what they do. They want to roll back the clock on all the gains that the EPA has made, all the gains that other regulatory bodies have made. So they say, okay, let's roll back environmental protections. Okay, then more people are going to die as a result of the pollution. Just because it's long-term doesn't mean they're not actually dying from the pollution, just because it's not like you remove the rules and then immediately thousands of people drop dead. No. You remove the rules and then over time people will die young. But that's a fucking crisis. Just because it's happening a little down the road doesn't mean it's not a crisis. And when it comes to other things too, like this kind of regulation, Hey, labor laws that protect workers. Yeah, scrap those. Well, then again, more people are going to die. But just because it's not immediate, we can't pay attention, and the media can't ever fucking pay attention. Mainstream media would never talk about things that are really serious like this that affect people. But that's why we're here. By the way, patreon.com/secular talk, because YouTube monetization, massive hit. They're basically defunding news and politics as much as possible. So we're funded mostly by you guys now. Patreon.com/secular talk. Just if you can, just $2 a month if you really love our videos. It works out to like 1 cent per video because we do 40 videos a week plus the Kyle and Corin podcast. But look at this, man. This is crazy. You just a regulation that is common sense to stop it so workers don't have to breathe in toxic dust that is going to kill them in the long run. They say get rid of it, which means you're sentencing 600 people a year to die, and you're sentencing more people to chronic illness in dealing with the results of breathing in this toxic chemical. It's really not that much to ask to say, hey, it is now a rule you have to wet the stone before you cut it. It's now a rule that you need certain kind of ventilation or dust collecting equipment on the work site. It's now a rule to wear certain respiratory equipment. It'll cost you a little bit of money up front, but that's what the cost of doing business. You can't fucking build a bridge and have it weak so that it collapses in 8 years because you made it with shitty construction materials. By the same token, you shouldn't have workers breathing in toxic dust and dying young. But under Trump and under the Republicans, they go, nah, whatever. Whatever. It is what it is. Who gives a shit? Let him die. Because, hey, at least I'm helping out the industry that funded my campaign. That's almost always what it boils down to. But now you know how disgusting they're acting, and you know the consequences of it, so we should all act accordingly.